While the beautiful thief attempts to steal riches from the boat's wealthy passenger, the ship encounters major problems, most notably a giant murderous sea creature with testicles. Oh, tentacles. Don't make the a beauty. I'm thinking about human penis here.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down to Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Chat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, and this is the podcast for you, I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week, we take a look back in time to decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit chatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Chat on TV. We review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all information and past episodes at chatpod.com/TV. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
Gene, I know I say it a lot, but this is genuinely a very special evening. And it has nothing to do with the movie we're reviewing this week, the genre, anything about it. It is Stephanie Q's birthday today. So I just want to give her a little round of applause, say happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Stephanie.
And Stephanie, like so many of our other listeners, have decided to use the commission process and selecting a film for us to review as a gift to herself. She's a previous commissioner of Kindergarten Cop and a great supporter of the podcast. She has a long list of movies she's thinking about doing. So I was very excited to give Stephanie the gift of love and a hug and a review of her favorite 1984 mermaid love tale, The Comedy Splash.
And Stephanie writes, greetings, Chat crew. I want to first off start by sending immense thanks for agreeing to do my birthday commission. Splash was such a huge part of my upbringing and formed the woman that I am today. I'm excited to share this experience with you and your listeners, and I'm really hoping that you give this one a much better wipe score than my last commission, The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. To say I was disappointed with your last review would be an understatement. I believe that it was the equivalent of you punching into my chest, tearing out my heart, throwing it on the ground, and then gleefully stomping it into a squishy mess. But it's also why I love the three of you. You're honest and not afraid to show it. Now, on to Splash. I am an OG mermaid girl, tattoos and all. My family and friends think of me when they see a mermaid. I'm easy to buy for. It all started when my mom recorded on our Betamax VCR the delightful Mr. Peabody and the Mermaid. I think I was 6, and that started my obsession. So when I was 8, my mom took me to see Splash at the movie theater. Both of us excited that we get to see a beautiful mermaid on the big screen. I loved it so much that when my paternal grandmother came to town a few weeks later, I asked her to take me, and I told her I hadn't seen it yet. But she quickly realized this wasn't true when I kept exclaiming, I love this part. Oh, this part's funny. Then my maternal grandmother wanted in on the action, so together we created an oil painting of a mermaid with an orange tail, just like Madison. That painting hangs in my living room to this day. Not only does this movie give me happy memories with my mom and 2 grandmothers, it's just fun entertainment, and I feel it holds up to this day. There are adult themes and jokes, but it can still be enjoyed by the whole family. So many great moments. The lobster scene, the Morton salt, the TVs blowing up, welcome to the Statue of Liberty, and just me and the Moron twins. I can't stop laughing. And who knew that Cape Cod looks like a Caribbean paradise? It's a quarter wipe for me. I hope you all enjoy reviewing it just as much as I enjoy watching it. Plus, I'm hoping that Gene will be a little more kind to this movie as it contains really nice 80s boobs. Thank you for all your hard work. See you at the next commission, Stephanie. So, Stephanie, thank you so much for your commission. You know, the King Bee tried to pull this shit with me the other day. He told me he wanted to go see Renfield. And I was like, listen, I don't go to the theaters very often. I don't get to see a lot of movies in the theater. We're always doing chat movies. If I am going to go to the theater, I want to go see Sisu or something like that. And he said, no, we got to go see Renfield. So I took time off of work. I got all excited to go on a Monday with my buddy and go to the theater down the street, get the bottomless popcorn, just make a day of it. I talked to him the day before, and he's like, "Dude, I gotta confess to you, I can't hold it any longer. I went and saw Renfield. It's not great." So, Stephanie, apparently you have a better poker face than the King Bee.
What a dick!
Can you imagine? He got bored over the weekend, so he just went to see the movie without me.
First of all, I can't imagine King Bee getting off the couch to motivate himself to go see a film twice. I thought you were going to tell me that he backed out at the last minute.
He did back out at the last minute.
Wow. King Bee.
So that was his actual motivation. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about keeping the secret. It was about he just decided he didn't want to go again. So
how do you even know he saw it? That could have been his whole play.
Oh, I know he saw it. Because he writes it. He also writes in our Discord. He writes movie reviews that nobody reads, but they're in there. Speaking of which, he said that the Dungeons and Dragons movie is a perfect movie. So now I got to watch that too.
I watched about 15 minutes of it. The tone is pretty funny. I liked it so far.
What made you stop?
It was late, and we had to go to a birthday party, so it was the time constraints. I thought it was going to be a pile of shit, but it was pretty good.
Wait, so you paid for the movie, watched 15 minutes, and shut it off?
Oh, no, it's on Kerry Gross's Plex server.
Ah, okay. Well,
thank you, Kerry. Love you.
Well, Splash is a 1984 fantasy romantic comedy directed by Ron Howard, starring Tom Hanks, Daryl Hannah, John Candy, and Eugene Levy. It involves a young man who falls in love with a mysterious woman who is secretly a mermaid. Splash was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay and was the first film released by Touchstone Pictures, a film label created by Walt Disney Studios to release films targeted at adult audiences with mature content. Splash was critically and commercially successful, earning over $69 million, nice, on an $11 million budget. So Big D, we always ask what your memories are of the movie we're covering. Tonight it's Splash. Let's start with you.
Man, I don't know that Disney would do this take on a mermaid today. I think their live action Little Mermaid will be very different than this, because this was something for our listeners who are, let's say, under 40. You've grown up with porn online. You've grown up with Victoria's Secret. You don't know the challenges. You don't know the hard times of a young boy entering puberty, Gene taking out like the J.C. Penney catalog or whatever it was that you used to pleasure yourself to.
It was the tags off of lingerie at Mervyn's.
Yeah.
My mom found like a stack of them under the mattress. It was very embarrassing.
Oh, they were like smut playing cards. You trade them with your friends.
Absolutely.
You're like, hey, I got a G-string. I got Susie with a corset. You want to trade? And they would do it. Kids, you don't understand. What, like porn online, it's ruined it. The hunt is not there. So as a kid, you had two options. Dad's like Playboy calendar, which mine had, and his little stash of Playboy mags that you would go down and look at, the forbidden photos. Or you had late night HBO, Cinemax, when everybody had gone to sleep, and there was the danger, because there was only one TV that had the cable box, the danger that somebody could come out and bust you while you're watching it. So kids would talk about movies that had some nudity in it, and this movie had some ass, momentary breasts. It was everything that a boy of 9 could hope for.
Now, I know a lot of parents like to use movies as learning opportunities for their kids. Like Big D, when you used our jujitsu video that we made together to explain balls to Emma. My mom, she wasn't really into explaining movies or giving me context when it was something sexual. So I watched Splash as a deeply curious and confused child. I was a little bit younger than you and Stephanie. So I was, I think, 5 when I first saw it. And I was so confused. Were mermaids real? Did women spend nights taking saltwater baths? Why did Tom Hanks's version of New York look so different from what ours look like? This movie left me with loads of questions while also being my first memory of a romantic comedy. So it holds a huge place in my deep psyche. I completely missed the comedy part as a child, by the way. I thought this was like a mix between like softcore porn and horror.
I mean, you were jerking off to tags off of lingerie, so.
It's more pillow humping.
Oh, that's a sad image. I was just picturing you.
On to the trailer.
Bauer.
Alan Bauer has a very successful business.
Okay, Bauer, you're ruined. You're finished. You're a ghost in this business.
How'd you like some bananas at cost?
Deal.
He's got the wisdom and support of his brother Freddie.
I love this guy. Do you hear me? I love him. Give me a kiss. What's the matter? You too big? Give me a...
I just want to meet a woman. I want to meet a woman, and I want to fall in love. It's not much.
And worst of all, Alan Bauer feels with all his heart that he doesn't have one.
Freddie, something in here is not working.
There are worse organs not to be working.
Where to? Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
And then, one day, accidentally, from out of the blue, it happens. Just looking at her is pure ecstasy. Just touching her is a lifelong fantasy come true. Just being in love with her plunges him into a wondrous world of rapture and enchantment. Just one problem stands in his way. A little secret she's trying to keep all to herself.
There is a mermaid in New York City.
How come she's got legs?
She has legs out of the water. She has fins in the water.
What about a woman showing up naked in a public place, Freddie? Well, I'm bored, of course. Can I come in?
No!
All right, let me in.
I'll be right there. I'm just changing.
That girl is a mermaid.
All my life, I've been waiting for someone, and when I find her, she's a fish. Nobody said love's perfect. She's really hungry.
Daryl Hannah, Tom Hanks, and John Candy. Splash, a fantastic tale about a fantastic tale.
Come on in, the water's fine.
In 1964, 8-year-old Alan Bauer and his family are taking a boat tour at Cape Cod when Alan jumps overboard. In the ocean, he encounters a young girl and inexplicably finds himself able to breathe underwater. He is rescued and pulled back to the surface, and the two are separated. Since no one else saw the girl, Alan comes to believe the encounter was a near-death hallucination. So we've talked at length about how Splash is a movie about a mermaid. It's a movie about Daryl Hannah. I'm glad that they took the time to develop Alan as a character. And yes, it is Tom Hanks. Yes, he is a star. But at the time, I mean, this was a young, new actor. And they took the care to give him subtle little tics that reflect his near-death experience in 1964 and how it impacted him through life. So if you watch the movie closely, as we do here as professionals on Chat the Movies, we start by seeing him jumping into the water. And it's not just because he's some crazy kid. It's not because he has some sort of impulse control issues. He's irresistibly drawn to this other world. And they demonstrate that he's disconnected from the human world of his parents and his brother. Like, he's not into all the stuff that's happening on the boat. His mind is elsewhere. Then as an adult, we see him with multiple aquariums in his home and at work. He lives in New York. He loves Cape Cod. You would think that he swims, but he never learns to swim. Why? Probably because of his childhood trauma. And he has trouble committing to women, not because of the reason that most 80s comedies give us, which is like, he's a commitment phobe. No, he's still subconsciously in love with a mermaid that he saw when he was 8, a mermaid that he's also convinced himself was not real.
I mean, this is going to be a theme that we're going to continue, I think, throughout the entire movie, is that the development of characters, the way they foreshadow the kid to an adult, to things that will happen, the growth that I'm like, is this a movie about a mermaid walking to the Statue of Liberty naked? The relationship that they have of the two brothers, it's foreshadowing the character's development later on. You get Freddie, who's played by John Candy. He throws the change on the floor and he's looking up girls' skirts. And I just had flashbacks to like the Sandlot, where we were talking about whether or not it was appropriate to pretend that you were drowning to kiss the lifeguard. Here he's doing it, and we get to understand that these two brothers, they're like what I would imagine real brothers are. They're different. Freddie is a pervert, right? He's got the coins on the floor. Alan's uptight, you know, and he becomes a control freak as an adult. They both have their strengths. They both have their flaws, but they support each other, and it is amazing to watch. They bust each other's balls just like guys do. And I think Candy and Hanks, they have a rapport and a relationship that's the core of the film. It is unconditional love, and it ultimately allows them to grow and change, Freddie to take the business, Alan to find love, in a way that surprised me for a movie that was supposed to be, hey, mermaids are real.
We talked during Stripes about how John Candy is associated with things like Uncle Buck or the Great Outdoors. We didn't really talk about Splash, and he's fantastic in this movie. We even get to see him do a little bit of a dramatic scene. It was pretty great, but I always wonder why he's paired in situation with guys who simply cannot be genetically related to him. Adopted brother, maybe, but when he pulls up in that sports car and he jumps out with his like velvet jacket and that scarf, he's towering over Tom Hanks. I'm like, there's no way these guys are related.
No, but at least they got the kid actors to look like matching pairs of the two. And it was a pretty good spitting image. It was even better than the young, like Josh Baskin from Big.
Agreed. Well, in 1984, an adult Alan co-owns a wholesale fruit and vegetable business in New York City with his womanizing older brother, Freddie. Depressed after his latest breakup, Alan returns to Cape Cod, where he encounters Dr. Walter Kornbluth on a diving expedition. When his motorboat malfunctions, Alan falls into the sea and is knocked unconscious. He wakes up on a beach next to a beautiful naked woman who is unable to talk. After kissing him, she dives into the sea where she transforms into a mermaid in the sight of Kornbluth.
So lately, Gene, I've been doing a lot of reflection about how I am on the podcast, my technique, trying to get better. And I've realized that as I've become an older curmudgeon, that I'm closing in here on 50 very soon, that I've become negative a lot, that I've become nitpicky. I don't want to think like I'm a professional podcaster and I need the plot to develop in a logical way. A lot of times I do that too much. And I respect this film. I'm going to go against the grain, what I've been saying recently. I don't need the Karate Kid anymore to have a breakdown of the rules and the bracketing and how the tournament works. Because this movie, I respect, they try to explain nothing about what's going on. They don't make an effort. They don't tell us any backstory about the mermaids, their powers, anything we see on screen. It would be a waste of time because we would immediately call bullshit if they try to explain, why did she get legs? How did she do it? What gave us this situation? How come she only has 5 days? Immediately we would know on face value that this does not make any sense. Oh, the full moon. Okay, great. Why is she taking a salt bath? How did she manage to trade her necklace to somebody in the parks department for an actual fountain, move it up to, like, let's say, I think the 4th or 5th floor of a building, install it? How did Tom Hanks, how did he get a naked woman who was on the cover of all the newspapers out of the police station by saying, hey, I know her? You think he's the only pervert in New York who showed up being like, hey, that girl who doesn't speak English, she's with me? They let him go. She learns English faster than John Dunbar from the Lakota. None of those matter because the movie doesn't even try to explain it.
How are the waters of Cape Cod so crystal clear?
Yes, that's the last place that a mermaid would live.
Why does a mermaid who lives in Cape Cod not know that ice forms? Or why does she need her water heated up?
How great would it be if she jumped into the Hudson? She swam about 30 feet and just died. Just died in the polluted water of the 80s.
I think a lot of the reason they were able to not explain anything is Daryl Hannah, because you look at her and you just don't care. Like, this is our second Daryl Hannah movie and the first where she isn't playing a killer android with heavy makeup. I knew this woman was beautiful. I mean, she's legendary, but I think it's safe to say that Daryl Hannah is the most incredible specimen we've ever witnessed. Fuck the name of the rose, right? This woman, 5'10", 135 pounds, rock solid jawline, those broad shoulders, and she can kiss. I'm watching her kiss on screen. I'm like, I want to kiss her. And you can understand why a guy like Alan would instantly fall in love with her. And it makes sense that she'd be a mermaid because normal humans just aren't built like that. There's something magical going on there.
There's a natural beauty to her that I don't think I've experienced in a while. She is unconventionally attractive. She looks natural. She's approachable. She's stunning, but yet somehow everybody, like that dream country girl. Yeah, it's this weird mix. But there's some weird shit going on here, okay? Because I'm always in the back of my mind having the Little Mermaid. And I'm thinking we're going to go the direction of Little Mermaid. So I guess she's pined for Alan all these years. Alan gets drunk, goes up there. He gets hit in the head. Fat Jack, takes off, leaves him on the boat. Fat Jack, there's no way that fat bastard is swimming back to land 2 miles.
He's the best character in the movie.
Yeah, that fat bastard. He's going to get the little boat. There's no way Fat Jack survives. So Alan washes up, and now look, they're together. Madison finds him. What does Madison do after she kisses him? She immediately leaves. Inexplicably, why did you leave him? You found him. She then has a moment that I think we're going back to The Little Mermaid, where she's found her dingle hopper, and she's going to swim down to the ship, and she's going to go find her witchamajig, and she's going to talk to Scuttle the bird. But no, she goes out and she finds the sunken ship that has now paper maps. She takes out the driver's license and somehow matches his address to New York City. She plots a course and she's off. This is ultra complex. And I know I said I don't care about them explaining things. It was just man, have her get in the cab and follow him home.
This isn't some speedboat that sank a week ago either. This is a sunken galley from the 18th century. Yes. They never explain why she leaves. There's no threat. They're not on a timer. This whole chain of events, including his wallet, consulting the wonderfully preserved maps of the sunken ship, and then showing up at the Statue of Liberty naked. It could have instead been a simple few days on an island, just the two of them. She could have taught him how to fish. All she had to do is stick around. I don't know why she left.
It could have been Castaway 30 years earlier. But I think the only way those paper mats survived is if this galley was some kind of what is it?
Tupperware?
Where you go to visit someplace, where it is it's for people on vacation.
Like a tourist trap?
Yeah. I think this might have been a tourist ship at Cape Cod that runs in the summer. Tourists go out there. It sank in a squall. That's the only way it would be in one piece. It looked kind of small. There were no cannons, no skeletons.
Well, the mermaid uses Alan's wallet and a sunken ship's charts to locate New York. She comes ashore naked at the Statue of Liberty and is arrested for indecent exposure. The police contact Alan, and the mysterious girl is released into his care. Unable to say her name in human language, she selects Madison from a Madison Avenue sign and learns English from TV. She tells Alan that she'll be in New York for 6 days, unable to return home if she stays any longer. They fall in love, and Alan proposes to Madison, who runs away. She later returns to Alan and agrees to marry him, with the added promise of telling him the truth about herself after an upcoming dignitary dinner to welcome the president.
I was just surprised that Madison, gorgeous, naked, she is all over Alan every time she is anywhere near him. Cape Cod as a kid, kiss, no talk. Cape Cod as an adult, the police station, the elevator, the car, on top of the refrigerator. These are all the places that they just had passionate sex. They're making out. So to me, Madison, she's obviously sexually aroused. She's sexually experienced. So it led me to some questions that normally a 49-year-old adult wouldn't have. Number one, are mermaids more sexually active than humans? Two, has she had sex with a human vagina before, which she now has? And how does she know it works, right? So then three, how will Alan enjoy sex with her once she gets her fins and he's going to live with her and she's going to have an aquatic vagina? These were the things I found myself asking.
So your first question, are mermaids more sexually active than humans? So because mermaids and elves are the product of horny nerds and lonely sailors' imaginations, I imagine that, yes, they want to fuck all the time. But I got to ask, is Madison super sexually experienced, or is she just free from all the socially imposed hangups we have about sex? Because that's one of the recurring themes throughout the movie is the hangups that Alan has been caught in this human world. And I feel like you're imposing some of those hangups right now, Big D, because who says she had sex with a human vagina? Maybe it was anal. Maybe it was just in her mouth. Who says an aquatic vagina is any different? You are a grown-ass adult, as you have acknowledged, who should know that there is a wide range of vagina out there. Human vaginas, some of which are far stranger than anything the ocean has ever thrown at us.
Well, Gene, I suspected that you were going to try to poke holes in my question here. So what I did was I first went to ChatGPT. I then went to Google, and I searched, do mermaids have vaginas? And if we know who would be an expert on mermaids or sea creatures, it's the Australians.
Yes.
So I got a link to the Australian National University, and I found a paper which specializes in mermaid lore. Mermaids weren't created by nerds, Gene. They were created way back in history where seamen were out there on long voyages. So there was actually a part of this paper that was published in the Australian National University. And one of the sections is how mermaids reproduce. So I'm going to read this to you. Females have human internal reproductive organs. However, the vaginas are slightly shorter. And the common urogenital opening, the urethra merging to the vaginal canal near the opening, is in the front. The opening can stretch as much as a human vagina opening. Mermaid babies are born live, as opposed to hatched from an egg. A clitoris, which is the same color as its tail, is slightly below the urogenital opening, and an anus is above the urogenital opening as well. Mermaid vaginas are slightly smaller than the human ones, since male mermaid penises are smaller.
Of course.
So they tend to be more sexually satisfied by human males. The human males are better endowed than the mermen, which explains why mermaids tend to have sex with humans. Maybe that's why Madison is all over Alan. So you poo-pooed my idea. This is academic, Gene. Academic.
But we get a bit of a dichotomy when it comes to Madison, because on one hand, she's shown as having this innocence toward the human world. And on the other hand, we know that she lived in the ocean. And the one part of the movie that I don't buy is when Madison is crestfallen watching Bonanza. Alan leaves her with just the TV in New York, first day on land. And he comes home, she's crying, and she says, that man just killed that other man in the middle of the street. I'm thinking, if mermaids do exist, they got to be hard as nails, man, because the sea is like 1,000 times more terrifying and deadly than life on land. Like everything out there is trying to kill you, is trying to eat everything else. It's a cold, dark, wet war zone. You're not safe from below. You're not safe from on top or anywhere. Madison could probably kill a man without thinking twice. I don't think she's some angel who's going to be crying over Bonanza.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, are mermaids and mer people like the top of the aquatic food chain that we're just not aware of? Like, maybe they have some telepathy or something. They can control sharks. Obviously, humans pollution is going to force them to a certain area. Maybe Cape Cod is one of the last bastions of water for them.
Apparently also just like a 3-minute swim from New York.
Well, they're fast. You saw her haul ass. Later, and then when she goes after the NYPD scuba team, she hauls ass past them pretty quick. But I was glad, Gene, that this traumatic scene on TV, it set me up where I was guaranteed that we're going to get her at some point in the movie face to face with an aquatic creature. Like maybe she's going to go into a Red Lobster and she's going to be horrified by the way that humans treat their sea creatures or any kind of animal from the sea. Hell no. Madison completely subverted my expectation. She's down with it. She recognized the difference between like a sea creature as a friend and food. Have you seen The Boys?
Not past season 1.
Okay, so there's a character out there. I think most people have watched it. There's a character called The Deep. He's like a knockoff of Aquaman. Like his powers are mocked because he can talk to the sea creatures. He has an octopus friend that we learn and we don't know if it's male or female, that he actually has oral sex where you see the octopus on his crotch giving him head. And Homelander, who's like the big Superman type, the evil, forces him to kill his lover after having oral sex, and the octopus begs for its life. Like, don't kill me, don't kill me. The fact that Madison, hard as nails, war zone, the sea, eat or be eaten, she is a hard-ass mermaid. And maybe we think they're princesses, but they're the badasses of the sea.
Yeah, what you said just makes me even more grateful that I stopped watching The Boys. But I love that Alan doesn't sweat the small stuff. He sees her eat that lobster. Everybody in the restaurant is horrified by it. People are scoffing. People are judging. He doesn't give a shit.
No.
Your super hot girlfriend wants to eat a whole lobster. Who cares? And I'm in the same boat as him, man. Like if I'm with Sarah and she doesn't know how to eat sushi, she just picks up the whole roll and shoves it in her mouth. Great. That's fine.
And I want to compliment Daryl Hannah's performance. She walks a line where she makes the fact that she had just learned English seem somewhat believable. She's stumbling with the words when she gets the blue Tiffany box and she thinks that's the gift. It's endearing. You love her. It's not laughable. It's something, the performance is very subtle that makes you believe she is this sea creature, this hard as nails mermaid who's in love and lusting human penis, but at the same point could not know what a Tiffany box was.
We talked during Dances with Wolves about lessons learned in movies and how movies don't have lessons anymore. Splash was a great reminder that I need to get my priorities straight. All too often, especially in 80s movies, we see people fall in love. And what's the struggle? It's a balance between like falling in love and their identities, like we saw in Grease, or falling in love and their responsibilities. Alan, he says, fuck all that. Like once he gets a call from the police and like, hey, we found Madison, he immediately leaves an important meeting at work. He takes the morning off and then he's like, hey, I got to get back to work. I know we just boned, but and then no. You know, I'm going to go back an hour late because this woman who's found him is better than anything work can ever offer. Like you don't sleep on a naked Daryl Hannah. And throughout the movie, he just breaks his old habits because Madison is just worth it. And it's just a reminder to myself, I'm like, really? I mean, prioritize it, right? You got a great person in your life. Why are you concerned with work and other bullshit?
Also, the movies we've been doing lately are so predictable. When he's found now the love, he's had sex like 4 or 5 times. She's beautiful. She's in his apartment. And he goes, I got to go back to work. It's 3:00. I'm like, oh my, you're so stupid. What are you doing? She's there. He gets to the door, and what does he do? He turns around, comes back, and it says, screw my job.
Yeah.
So nice for a guy to do something realistic or a character to do something realistic.
Well, realizing that the naked woman at Liberty Island was the mermaid he encountered, Kornbluth pursues the couple. He infiltrates the dignitary dinner, splashing Madison with a hose and successfully unmasking her identity. Madison is seized by government agents and taken to a secret lab headed by Kornbluth's cold-hearted rival, Dr. Ross. As Madison withers away in captivity, a remorseful Kornbluth learns that the scientists are planning to dissect her. Alan confronts the guilt-ridden Kornbluth, who agrees to help rescue her.
So, Gene, I know you've already said that I think your experience in New York was very different than this film. I want to say I had some moments that really touched me. Yes, it's a lot of superficial stuff that made it feel like NYC. They had the Fulton Fish Market. It was the way people were talking. You had the Teamsters, and you had a lot of Italian guys throwing fish and sports references. And there's like some pendants for like the sports team, the old Jets jerseys. There's ice skating at Rockefeller Center. But for me, Gene, the Crazy Eddie commercials, if you did not grow up in New York, that is not part of this film. That is not a shtick. That man, Crazy Eddie, was a fixture in New York my entire childhood. He had 12 locations. I think he eventually was convicted of some kind of financial fraud. His stores closed. He ran this electronic stores, and you always had great deals on all the electronics. And his commercials would come on. He screamed. In that moment, I became a 9-year-old kid sitting watching my TV and just watching Crazy Eddie rant about the savings. And it made me feel so good and such a warm memory.
Movies like Splash gave us so much comfort when we moved to Arizona and everything was just foreign to us, right? I mean, first of all, we were Iranian immigrants, but then beyond that, New York was home and we developed those habits, and those were our cornerstones, our touchstones for what life was like. And they came to Arizona and everything was different. And again, you guys got to remember, think back, this is like pre-internet, right? So you couldn't just go online and find things that brought you comfort or things that were familiar or explore the world. It was through film that we were able to reconnect to New York City. One of the things we did not do when we were in New York, because we just did not have the money, was take a lot of cabs. So we were definitely train people, bus people, but nearly all my uncles were cabbies when we got to Phoenix because they're Iranian immigrants. They didn't know the language very well. They didn't really have any sort of transferable job skills, but they could drive cabs. Until watching 80s movies for Shat, I didn't realize that there was this Hollywood image of the rude taxi driver. I always thought it was a very esteemed position, but seeing movies like Stripes, seeing movies like Splash, I'm starting to understand why Uber was such an attractive proposition when it first arrived on the scene. I didn't know cabbies were supposed to be like this, you know, guys who didn't give a fuck, who were throwing you around the inside of the cab, who were rude to everybody, who were blocking the military's official work.
Yeah, but I think you had to work to get your medallion. And it was a ton of money to become a cabbie. So I think once you got it, you were like a made man. You were a made man of like the driving mafia. You could do whatever the fuck you wanted. But we're introduced here, or we finally get to the point where Kornbluth is going to enter into the plot. And he's another one. This is a movie about a mermaid following a guy to New York and falling in love. It's ridiculous, but this character, they spend the time. They build the backstory. They let him develop and grow. When we meet him on the beach and he's stumbling around with those two idiots, the Moron twins, and for anyone who has watched Discovery Channel's Bering Sea Gold, that's what this is. This is idiots out on a boat in the sea with divers below, farting in the airlines. And that's what it is. And I'm thinking he's going to stick to that. But no, instead, we learn that he is the laughing stock of the scientific community. But he had started out as a promising student, that he had ideas that weren't traditional, and they started mocking him. So he's not evil. He's not the typical villain like Dr. Ross, who's going to torture the mermaid, or he's going to make this discovery. He wants redemption. That's the only thing he wants. And when he sees her sick in that water tank and what the government's going to do, and that she's really, really suffering, there's a guilt that grows in him. And you can see his heart changing. And it made him repeatedly getting beaten as he tries to splash water on the same random couple in New York. That made it feel earned. To that turn to a hero was something that I was pulling for.
Kornbluth is absolutely an incel, though. He's afraid to talk to Madison. He doesn't once make an attempt to just talk to her. Instead, he roams the city spraying women with hoses. Why not just go up to Madison and say, "Hi, I'm Dr. Kornbluth. We saw each other in the waters of Cape Cod. I don't mean you any harm. I'm on your side. I just want to learn about you." Granted, she'll probably say no, but it sure beats the piss out of just going around spraying people on the streets of New York.
If he was more competent, he had a clear shot. When they were in the waters of Cape Cod, Madison basically came over and said, "Hey, take a picture of me." And you're right, Gene, he was so nervous. That's why he fumbled with the picture. It wasn't the shock.
Girl.
It wasn't the shock of a mermaid. It was the boobies. It was the boobie and the morass. That's what made him so nervous. But Gene, you said something here. You said, what happens when she's revealed and what happens on the streets of New York. And we've recently complained about movies doing slow motion shots, whether it's to make an action scene seem more dramatic, or like Dances with Wolves, where we're going to slow the film down because we're going to make a frontier girl's parents' death more emotional.
Run!
This, people, is how you use slow motion to draw some emotion. Dr. Kornbluth's been chasing women around New York, splashing them with water. He sneaks into the president's dinner with a giant backpack on, his arm in a cast, looking like a terrorist. And I'm like, there's no way he can get close to him. Of course he gets caught. Out in the streets, he sees his pack. It's on the ground. Out comes Madison and Allen. Slow motion. He lunges for the hose, sprays. We see slow motion, the water droplets going through the air. There's snaps of photographies like flashes. Madison goes down. She's getting wet. She's terrorized. She's scared. She's feeling vulnerable. People are going to see her. Alan is confused. He doesn't know how to feel. He feels like he's been tricked. It is an absolutely amazing shot that makes you feel sad for Madison, the redemption of Kornbluth, Alan's confusion, all in this one stupid shot of a mermaid getting revealed on the streets of Manhattan.
Did you notice that other incredibly conspicuous camera trick when Alan and Madison were kissing in the park? There's like this long shot of them. They're kissing. It's nighttime. Mm-hmm. I noticed, I was watching his hand move on her, and they straight up reversed the film to get a longer kiss shot. And we can't talk about Splash without addressing Daryl Hannah's fishtail. Big D talked about how the fishtail color matches the clitoris color. I'm not going to go that far into the details, but it is a work of art as far as I'm concerned. Early concepts for Splash wanted her tail to be something more dolphin-like. They thought it would be more scientifically correct, more anatomically correct if she was kind of like half human, half dolphin. But Ron Howard and others involved in the production of this movie said, no, we want something like a goldfish, something tropical or like a koi. And so they went with this beautiful, bright orange tail, and it really is gorgeous. Daryl Hannah had it glued to her skin so that you couldn't see any of the seams, and they would paint over that. It would take 5 hours to put it on after removing it. So when she had it on and glued to her skin, she couldn't eat or drink anything. And I'd say it was worth it. It was worth all the work, because I saw that tail maybe 2 or 3 times as a 5-year-old. I never forgot it. It was always stuck in my mind, and it looked just as amazing nearly 40 years later.
I think it also pays off, because there is that famous scene. She's in the bathtub and it unrolls. Yes. It reminded me of Pretty Woman with Julia Roberts. It's a beautiful shot. And they focus on it so that you're like really appreciating the design of it and the beauty. And it pays off, Gene, when she's in the tank and she's suffering and it scales and it's like she's shedding and you can see she's sickly. It's like E.T. down in the culvert with the raccoon picking at him, and he's pale. It made you feel bad for her.
Funny you should mention that. The team that worked on this tale also worked on E.T.
Oh, totally. And am I the only one who found every time they did underwater scenes with her, I was wondering how close she was to death? Because you know that they would be filming her swimming through all of these scenes and then splice them together. But back then, man, the shit was that couldn't have been easy to swim around. And I doubt there was a real safety procedure in place to save her.
As a multi-year Renaissance Festival veteran who goes and sees the living mermaids every year, it ain't easy.
No.
Impersonating Swedish scientists, Alan, Freddy, and Kornbluth smuggle Madison out of captivity. Freddy decides to be arrested in Alan's place, while Kornbluth unsuccessfully tries to stop soldiers from catching the couple. As Alan and Madison make it to New York Harbor, Madison warns Alan that if he comes to live in the sea, he cannot return to land. She jumps in the water, and Alan follows, but starts to drown. Madison kisses him, gifting him the ability to swim and breathe underwater. The couple escape several frogmen, and Alan discards his jacket, forsaking his miserable life on the surface as the couple happily swim toward an underwater kingdom. So most 80s movies would have ended with Madison pulling a Little Mermaid. She permanently becomes human to live with Alan in New York City. I hate that idea as much as I hate Prince Eric in general. Splash, in my mind, only could have ended in two acceptable ways. One, Alan and Madison lived the rest of their lives apart. It's a tragic ending. They always think of what could have been. Or Alan leaves his life on land and joins Madison in Atlantis near Cape Cod, which is what the writers went with. And it makes for such a power play. A man giving up his business and his bros and New York City to live underwater in his wife's world. It is so woke.
I got some red flags about him as a person. He's a bit controlling. The whole where Madison's in the bathroom. What are you doing in there? I'm going to kick the door down. Nothing, Alan, nothing. I'm coming in. I'm coming. Dude kicks the door. Maybe she's taking a shit. Alan, so I'm worried about him in the Mer world.
I'm just imagining, instead of saying, I was shy, she just said, I was shitting.
Alan, you gave me pancakes all day long. What do you think is going to happen to me, Alan?
In my marine digestive tract. I'm shitting out of my front anus.
Alan, I've got bubble gut. You keep feeding me like hotel food and sausage. I'm not used to this.
Are you big into feeding your woman?
No, but again, Alan's a bit of a control freak. He likes to control what his women eat, I guess.
I'm very into it.
What, like feed?
Not controlling what women eat, but feeding, yes.
Like feeding her physically? Like...
No, not feeding her physically, like making food and then watching her enjoy it.
Okay.
Or just getting like really tempting shit, you know, like just get like a giant bag of like tortilla chips and show up and be like, oh, fuck, I guess we have tortilla chips now. Or Captain Crunch with Crunch Berries.
I was a little surprised how quickly she took to human food. She didn't question like sprinkles or...
It's just all shit that's been falling off boats for the last 20 years.
Yeah, probably here. But so Alan at the end, Gene, you've talked about his decision. He's gonna join her. He's gonna become a merman. But I'm like, what the fuck, dude? He declares this is him. He's been afraid of love the whole movie. I'm gonna make the ultimate leap of faith, literally and figuratively. He jumps out into the water. He loves Madison. He's going to forsake his brother, the business, everything he knows. He doesn't care. He's going to join Madison forever. I think you got to ask some questions before you go that deep. Me as a movie watcher, I don't care about the lore, about the powers, what's happening. But if I'm dedicating my life to I can never come back, I got to ask some simple questions. So he jumps in the water so he can join her. He can now breathe underwater, but he's still a human. What good is that? He's still got legs. And they said here in the block, Gene, that he can swim. He can't swim very well. He swims as fast as I do, and I'm not a merman. I'm going to be a constant target for every predator that's out there. I'm going to be slow as shit. I don't have fins. I wanted him at some point. He's disabled. I think he should have been like converted miraculously into a merman. We see fins. We see Alan and them swimming off together. Instead, this is going to be a miserable. He's a disabled merman.
Yeah, but the fucker was already useless. Like, let's face it. The love of his life was sprayed down on a New York City sidewalk by a crazed scientist, and he didn't fight at all. I would have been fucking taking heads off. My first instinct wouldn't have been, oh my God, my fiance is a monster. I'd be like, holy shit, this guy sprayed my woman with some kind of fish mutagen, and now she's dying on the sidewalk. I'm going to kill him.
Yeah. What do you think's going to happen when Alan arrives at Atlantis? Because now he can't swim around in jeans the whole time.
Right.
At some point, he's getting naked. Then they're going to see his human penis.
He'll be worshipped.
He will. Maybe they're going to be like,
maybe Madison was just a recruiting service.
Seriously. And with his like legs, maybe that allows him to do some positions the mer people can't do. And we'll see. Maybe there was a happy ending, Gene, but they're escaping. They've gone through this high speed chase in New York. They've escaped the NYPD, the scuba team, which I didn't know the NYPD had. And the movie, it just automatically jams on the emotional brakes. It does a full turn from, we're escaping, we're free, into the most low energy closing song and montage we've ever gotten. And I want to do I'm going to read the lyrics to you, but I'm going to do it like the movie sings it, right? And this was the 1984 song by Rita Coolidge called Love Came for Me. And it goes, one fine night, love came for me. How far we'll go, how good we'll be.
It's like a lullaby.
We saw a world no one ever saw. It was the world. Can love start? It goes on like this shit, dude. It's bad.
During this entire 3-4 minutes, we're watching them swim through gleefully as they go toward this underwater kingdom. You could have easily replaced this song with just like a calypso, any sort of like generic Caribbean music, and it would have been fine. Fuck, just the Decemberists, a sea shanty. I don't care. Anything but this. And what's crazy about it is even at the beginning credits of the movie, she gets like her own splash page of like, featuring Love Came For Me by Rita Coolidge. Like it's supposed to be the greatest song. I was amped to hear it.
So now keep in mind, people, Tom Hanks is not swimming away beautifully or like he's not gracefully gliding through the water.
He was keeping up.
So now he's in boots. He's kind of like struggling. She's pulling him along and the credits just start to roll over the top. We don't get like a real big reveal of Atlantis. It looks like the cover of The Little Mermaid with the penis castle. And then it just stops. How was my rendition, by the way?
It's pretty good. I'd rather hear yours, honestly, than Rita Coolidge's version. Well, now is the time in the podcast we give our Shat Score for Splash. The Shat Score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get our respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It is the glorious offspring if Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah ever decided to reproduce. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of the movie. It is spending the rest of your life under the sea with no tail, no ability to breathe without your wife around, and a pair of boots on your feet. Big D, we'll start with you. What is your wipe score for Splash?
I'm really surprised at this one, Gene. Very, very surprised. And this was the first movie by Touchstone, so maybe they took some extra time. It was up for an Oscar for the screenplay, so they obviously spent the time to develop the characters. That surprised me the most. The casting was perfect. The relationships were believable. It was fun. It was an hour and 49 minutes. And by the time I looked at my watch, it was like an hour and 20 in. That rarely happens. That's a sign that you're engaging with the characters in the story. The movie's going along. It's ridiculous, but I found myself pulling for the characters. It was thoroughly enjoyable. And there's great ass, Gene. We didn't talk enough about Daryl Hannah's naked ass that was prominently in most of the advertisement. It was fun for young boys, fun for adults. Dad could take the family to see it, get a little excited. Mom could dream about the love swimming off into the ocean. So it's a little something for everybody. I'm shocked here, Gene. 1 wipe.
I'm right there with you, Big D. This movie doesn't completely transcend the 80s. It still has some of the typical problems that 80s movies has, some of the quality control issues, but it is a terrific sampler of the magic in a young Tom Hanks and a young Daryl Hannah. I mean, they are just beautiful to watch. It wasn't too out there, but it still pushed some boundaries, both social and technical. And the romance was absolutely there to savor it. I was rooting for this couple the whole time, and that's always a good sign in romantic comedy and something that doesn't happen all that often on Shot the Movies. So between the two of us, it's a unanimous one wipe for Splash.
Well, Gene, with a score of one wipe, that now ties this film with some heavy hitters in the 80s and 90s films that we've covered at number 51. It's tied with Empire Strikes Back, Conan the Barbarian, Rounders, The Terminator, Back to the Future Part 2, Toy Story, Tremors, Sling Blade, Indiana Jones The Last Crusade, Blade, and South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut.
Just listen to that roundup of movies. Anything in the one wipe range, I would watch any day. If it's on, I'm watching it. And I think that's a great indicator that a movie deserves its one wipe score.
Totally agree.
Thank you, Stephanie, so much for your commission. If you missed our live stream that we did on Twitch just a couple weeks back, we covered a bunch of the mailbag items that we hadn't got to over the year. People had written in at host@chatpod.com. It's up on YouTube right now, and you can check it out there as well. We do have a couple of voicemails that we received, so we'd like to get to those now. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, just go to chatpod.com, use the SpeakPipe feature on any device, and we'd love to hear from you. Our first voicemail this week is about Bloodsport, and it comes from our friend Eric J.
Hey, Shat crew. Eric out of Iowa here. A while back, I commissioned Fargo. I've been listening for a few years now. If you remember, I'm a truck driver in the Midwest here, so got some time on my hands, and I really look forward to your podcast. All your opinions, views, research. Really, really appreciate you all. Thanks for the hours of entertainment. It truly means a lot. Your research and hard work. But, oh my fucking God, dude. I hope somebody saw me LOLing out here because I just listened to Bloodsport, and when you guys played the song, and he's like, "Fight to survive, Kumite, Kumite," and you all started chanting, I was rolling. I was fucking rolling, man. Fantastic. I just want to let you guys know I appreciate everything you do. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Eric, so much for your voicemail. Whenever I'm driving down the road and I see truckers, I always wonder what is going on in the cab. So I'm glad that we can brighten up your cab. Big D is very subtly and sneakily been inserting more and more music into the podcast. And I fought him on it at first, but moments like the Kumite in Bloodsport really make it worthwhile. And I agree, it was one of my favorite memories to do this podcast.
Yeah, Eric, I want to thank you very much for commissioning, supporting, but I also want to thank you for being the lifeblood of the economy and the things we take for granted. When I go to the store tomorrow to buy some toilet paper and some produce, it's because of guys like you. So it was nice to hear you out in the open road, the rumble of your big rig out there. So I'm glad you're taking us on your journey and not some lot lizard, because we're a lot safer and we won't give you an STD.
You mean you're not getting your slimy cherries from the produce wholesalers in New York?
You might. That's a very good callback. Very good.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric, for your voicemail. Next up, we have one from Matt in Virginia, who's calling in about Rad.
Hello, Shat crew. This is Matt in Virginia. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you guys so much for reviewing Rad. One of my all-time favorite movies. Ash, I wish you would have been there. Would have loved gotten your take on the movie. Just a quick question for my man Big D. I want to know if you ever rewatched Clue like you said you were going to. My man, you got to get rid of that pissy, whiny score that you gave. Let's keep the earth spinning. Make it right. You can't blame Roger this time. Give Clue the justice it deserves. It's one of the best movies of all time. Love you guys. Just keep doing what you're doing. Thanks.
Okay. So listen, you're right. You're 100% correct. I know I did. I said I would go watch it. I should. At 3.2 is a travesty. It's awful. Fuck. I mean, because Matt's he's a good listener. I got to keep my word.
Not just that, but the way you appreciated Rocky Horror Picture Show.
That's true.
And I know because I saw you appreciate it with my own eyes. I feel like Clue in the right environment, you could really get into it.
Oh, I think totally. I think Rocky Horror Picture Show should have been a precursor to that film, because you get what they're going for, and I think I would enjoy it much more. And again, I don't want to blame Roger, because I know you'll call me out on it.
Yeah, we got a couple movies that we either need to rewatch or watch in the first place. So I still have not seen Last of the Mohicans. I need to check that out. And then, of course, Muriel's Wedding. I really need to get that one done. Maybe I'll do that with the leftover time that I didn't use on Renfield with the King Bee. Watch Muriel's Wedding and figure out what my take on it is, because somebody needs to weigh in, be that crucial third vote in the Supreme Court of Shat in deciding whether Muriel is a piece of shit or not.
Okay, Matt, I promise. I'm going to do a deadline for you here, okay? I promise that in the month of May, I will watch Clue for you. If I don't...
1,000 curses on your house.
We'll figure some reward for you. Maybe we'll do like BMX Bandits or something for him.
That sounds like a win-win. All right, Matt, thank you so much for your voicemail. And finally, we have one from Lawrence, who's calling in about Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
I cannot believe that Mortal Kombat Annihilation got the same score as my movie, Krull. I could not even make it through the first 10 minutes of this movie before I had to turn it off. I would watch Krull on repeat in hell for eternity than have to sit through any bit of Mortal Kombat Annihilation. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Mortal Kombat Annihilation deserves to be 6 wipes. It is god awful, I think, because based on the first 10 minutes, it deserves to be the lowest movie in your rankings. Thank you. Still love you guys. Talk to you soon. Lawrence. Goodbye.
So, Lawrence, I went and looked. For some reason, I don't have Mortal Kombat Annihilation up in our scores. Do you know what we gave it, Gene?
We gave them identical scores. Krull and Mortal Kombat Annihilation have identical scores. So Krull, you gave 5 wipes. Yeah. I gave 4 3/4 wipes. Ash gave 4.5 wipes. Mortal Kombat Annihilation, you gave 5 wipes. I gave 4 3/4 wipes. Ash gave 4.5 wipes. So literally to a person, identical scores on both movies.
But now going back and comparing the two, I don't think that's right. Krull was, they had fire mirrors.
I love that you're so consistent, because at the end of the Mortal Kombat Annihilation podcast, if you go back and listen to it, we say,
Did I?
Wow, this feels way worse than Krull. Krull was a better movie. And you said, Krull had fire mirrors.
I'm so consistent.
Yeah. You're speaking your truth, man.
Yeah, 100%. I think Annihilation was a piece of shit that nobody cared about. Krull, they tried to. There were parts that were beautiful.
But you gave both of them 5 wipes. Lawrence, I got to tell you that you missed perhaps the worst part of Mortal Kombat Annihilation. So be glad that you stopped at 10 minutes, because when we get to the final fight, that dragon CGI is some of the worst special effects we've ever seen in any film we've covered on Shat. However, I think the deciding factor in why Krull was judged so harshly was the massive budget, the massive studio backing that they had, and the quality that you could see in the set pieces, yet the film itself felt so derivative and so poorly executed that we couldn't help but give it 4 3/4 wipes on average.
I think this is a victim of the sequence in which we did it. If Mortal Kombat Annihilation was first, there's no way I would have looked at Krull and been like, God, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel as bad.
This goes back to my theory of why I very rarely give 5 wipes, because you have to leave yourself some room on the bottom for something that is truly, truly atrocious. In this case, for me, it was Student Bodies. But when you start throwing 5 around Big D casually in a movie like Krull, you don't leave yourself a basement like Lawrence is suggesting with a 6 wiper for something like Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
I agree. I should be more selective. I'm like the monkeys at the zoo, just throwing shit everywhere.
All right, well, thank you, Lawrence, so much for your commission and your voicemail and your dramatic delivery of that voicemail. It's really beautiful. Big D, moving on from voicemail, what do we have coming up next week?
Gene, next week, the newly unveiled ocean liner sets out on its first cruise, only to encounter danger both on board and in the depths below. While the beautiful thief attempts to steal riches from the boat's wealthy passenger, the ship encounters major problems. most notably a gigantic murderous ocean creature with tentacles. Eventually, a boat captain comes across the ship and everyone struggles to survive the monster. Commissioned by Jeremy B. This came out in 1998, and I have not seen this film, but the poster is quite dramatic. A jet ski, flames, a hug for life, some water that looks like it was in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. I don't know what we're in for here, Gene.
What we are in for is week after week of sea monsters and hot ladies, because Famke Janssen in this movie looks absolutely spectacular. I can't wait to do it. And thank you, Jeremy, for commissioning it. Thank you, Stephanie, for commissioning Splash. Thank you to all our commissioners for making this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Chat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Chat the Movies. Email us, host@chatthemovies.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or commissioning your own movie. Find all the information by visiting our website, chatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Chat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all the information on our website, chatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. If you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave us a 5-star review. Helps the podcast grow. And if you stop by YouTube, please be sure to subscribe there as well, as we'll be bringing you some live content and more video. We'd love for you to see it. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D and Ash, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next week for the following movie.
At a depth of 4,000 feet, they roam harmlessly, minuscule, and unseen by human eyes. At 20,000 feet, they've been known to eat full-grown sharks. But what if those at 40,000 feet were to rise from the deep?
I got a really bad feeling about this.
Deep rising.